Okay, good evening. As I said, it's going to get noisy every now and then, and honestly, I'm not going to do anything about it. I just closed an existing project I was working on. I was going to open another when I saw the request on the group, and I decided, well, let's do this. So, anyone who's seen this channel for the first time, a lot of what I do here is listen to people's requests online regarding what they want to learn on Archicad, and I make videos that are specifically tailored to such requests so they learn how to do those things. If you want to be able to make a request, you can do it in the comments, or you can join the group in the link that you find in the description of this video. So when you check at the description, if you're watching on desktop, it's going to be down. If you're watching on a phone, it's just going to be slightly below the video. You check for the description of this video, and there's going to be a link to a WhatsApp group there. We have a growing community there where we solve issues for one another relating to not just Archicad but construction in general. So even if you are using some other software, there's probably going to be someone in there who will be able to help you out if there's something you want to learn how to do. That said, if you're not there, do yourself a favor and come in. Trust me, you won't regret it. Those who are there are having a good time, and I'm grateful to the person who suggested that. It's a good one so far. Let me dive into the main purpose of this video without wasting further time. So someone says he wants to learn how to do roof detailing. So I'm just going to cut a section across, by the way. Roof and foundation detailing as shown in sections. So I'm cutting a section line to face this portion of the building. This was one of the attempts I made for a client not too long ago. The floor plan has obviously changed very much, and that's why I use this publicly. Please keep in mind it's not very good to display work in public if they're supposed to be confidential. So for those who are asking to see some of these more clearly, I'm afraid such requests cannot be honored. That said, I'm opening the section right now. I went to the right here and I double clicked on this, and we'll come up with this thing here that a lot of people look at and they're like, oh my god, what the hell? How do I even go from this to a proper section? Well, anyone who's looking at this building as well, especially from the 3D here, will be familiar with it. I have done a few tutorials like on handrails. That's where I did this. I did tutorials also on columns based on someone's request. I did tutorial for custom perforated patterns like this on walls. So if you also have something else you want to learn, I've already explained earlier how you can make requests for it. So yeah, I think a lot of the things I'll be doing will be done on this project, so I could make references in case someone needs clarity on something. So now the section, if you look at the section view, you can see that we are seeing far away over here, we are seeing the roof of this guy. And if I don't want that to continue being the case, what I'm going to do is get to the plan, select the section marker as I did just now. Then I'm going to change the range, the horizontal range from this to this, limited. And now you see that it draws a line that shows that anything beyond this point, the section marker is not going to see anymore. I like where it is. If you want to extend or reduce the range, you can click on it and then drag it to any place you want as you see fit. If you want flexible range, you could click on this and just push only one part out, so it's not going to see, like if I have something like this, I'm going to undo that by the way. If I have something like this, it's going to see anything we have in here, but it's not going to see anything we have in here. I believe that kind of makes sense. Right, undo. So yeah, let's go detail that section. So it looks slightly better right now. Why is it taking so long? Okay. So big question, what shall I do to make this appear properly? Now keep in mind that if the method by which you are modeling is not friendly with Archicad, you are going to suffer here a lot, because a lot of the things you are going to be doing are going to be done manually. So if you are not modeling with Archicad as beam, what I mean by as beam, use walls where you have walls, use beams where you have beams, use columns where you have columns. A lot of people would just say, yeah, what he's saying is just what we're meant to be doing. But from what I can see from many people, both those I've worked with and others who have come with requests in the past, people tend to like say for example they want to introduce a column at the entrance of this building. A number of people would place a slab here and they're just going to extrude the slab, raise the height to where they want it and use it as a column, do something kind of like this, and then move it to the front of the building. By the way, this is supposed to flip. Where the hell is it? Okay. And this is a slab. A slab is a slab. A slab is not a column. Archicad knows that. You should too. So don't make such mistakes. Use things where they are meant to be used. Excuse me briefly, I just got a call. Okay, to be honest, I'm not even sure I remember exactly what I was saying before I took that call. But let me just carry on. I'll get myself back. I'm going to hide these. Now observe when I open this section that, okay, if I make any changes rather and open this section, if even for the slightest of things like making this guy to become gray, not that this should make much difference, but the section has to reload and it takes long. That's because of we have a lot of geometry here caused by CAD image. So one of the first things I want to do is hide this. I could bring it up back later towards the end. So to hide it, I'm going to first of all select all the roof coverings as we have here and move them to a layer. First I'm going to open the layer settings and create a new layer for it. So the new layer's name is going to be CI roof, and when I say okay, I hide it. Then all of these are currently inside the layer named Archicad layer, and I'm going to move them to the CI roof layer. And once I do this, it's going to take some seconds. Depending on the speed of your PC, it could happen nearly instantly. Why it seems to be taking some time on my end here is because I'm not connected to power, and typically PC becomes slower when it's like this. So let's get back here. So now observe how much faster this is going to load. And this is it loading without power. If it was connected to electricity, it was going to be even faster. So let's deal with the display first before I move into the roof and then show us how to remove some of these unwanted items that are blocking the road all over the place. So to do that, I'm going to go into the section settings. I could right click here and go into section settings. I could right click here on the screen and go to section settings. I could come down here. Like, there's so many ways to go about it. So I'm just going to go from here, and in this settings palette I'm going to focus on the model appearance for a start. I will come to other items over time, at least, so that everything I do you get to understand the role it plays. So the first thing I'm going to do is say I want uniform uncut, uncut fill to be uniform pen. Okay, now when I do this, what I tell Archicad is anything that is not cut by the section that is visible on this section, let them all be the same color. And Archicad now needs to know, right, what's that color gonna be? And I say the window background. In other words, this white here. If I had set my Windows background to be any other color, it will change accordingly. So let me say okay, and you see that change. Then if I go to change that window background, by the way, I could always go through grids and background. If I move the background to red, not like anybody should have any reason to do this, but if I do this, we end up with something like this. Do not do that. Alright, so let's go back to our and by the way, if you are very concerned about your eyes, as you should be, then I would suggest rather than take it all the way to this brilliant white we have over here, you dim it down to like a bright gray. It's less disturbing on the eyes, something like this, and it's still very much relatable. Alright, so that is the first thing. So one might be asking, what change did that make? The walls were gray before. Every other portion now that has color that we can see are coming from other categories of items that I'll be paying attention to in just a bit. But we can tell now that this background and this match. Alright, so let's go into the settings one more time. What I'm going to change this time is to say I want uniform uncut pens, and when I say okay to this, I'm telling Archicad that for anything that was not cut by this section that is visible on the section where there are actual lines and not surfaces. The first part I did dealt with surfaces. This second part will be dealing with lines. I want all those lines to have the same color, and in this case I want it to be this gray right here. So I'm going to say okay to that, and then observe the handrails, the chairs, other things have become gray. To make that further better emphasized, I'm going to reopen the settings, and this time instead of gray I would say I want it to be navy blue, and then we end up with something like this. I believe we are kind of getting the whole point. Alright, so after that, the next thing I am going to do is to go back there. You're not supposed to be doing this one by one. The reason why normally when I work I just go set everything all at once because I already know what they all do, but I'm explaining these one at a time so you understand the function of everything I am touching. Alright, let me close this so I'll explain the next thing I want to do. The next thing I want to do has to do with the transparency. I have glass railings here, and we can see these from behind this, and while that is nice, sometimes it can do more harm than good in your renders, and I said renders in your sections, and make some things display when you don't need them to display. So typically I turn off transparency. Now observe from this curved spiral staircase we have here that when I switch it off, then you're not going to see the two handrails intersecting in the way they were before. Now this feels a bit more real in my own opinion. At least it shows us that if there was something in between this rail and this rail, it's going to be like hidden. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is settings open now. Alright, is I also want to make sure that the surface cover fill foreground is active. What does this do? If I have any textured materials displaying, I don't think there's any in this particular scenario, maybe I would just add one for the sake of it, but if I have any textured material, Archicad show the finish of that texture here. That's basically what I'm asking it to do. Okay, I was about to say that under the staircase should have. So if you look at under this staircase from the 3D window, I think that staircase should be like at the back of the building here. I haven't really colorized it. It still has this default concrete that comes with the Archicad default template. If I had set it to a specific color, we might not see anything, but you see, let me adjust the camera a bit here. These lines that define its texture, those rather are what we can see here and still along its surface at this point as well, and you can also see something like that here. It could be useful if you have certain finishes that are textured like bricks, like stone and other things. So that's also something I like setting. Another thing I would still want to pay attention to, still from within the model appearance, is whether or not I want shadows. There are days when I want to see shadows in my sections. There are some days when I'm like, nah, this is not necessary. So it all depends on what you want to achieve. So I'm going to put it on, at least so we just see what it feels like, and I'm going to make it, okay, I'm going to leave it at the default. In case this is not what you're seeing, switch it on the fill types here to this 50%. What that does is it creates a transparent fill as the shadow, and then the background, as we can tell, is going to be transparent. This pen right here is transparent. All these ones are colored and they are opaque, they are not see-through. but this particular one is transparent, and that's how shadows are meant to be. Alright, last but not least, there are some days, it's not all the time, but there are days when I just want a uniform color across. By the way, you can see there's too much shadow because the roof is covering everything, so as I was saying, I was going to off it. Okay, let me do one shadow setting before I deal with the cut pens I was about to touch right now. Reopen. For the shadow, I'm going to raise this and drop the sun altitude to about 10 degrees. Then the azimuth. In case you don't know what these things are, you can read the Archicad documentation. I don't want this video to be way too long. I'm running on battery right now, not on power, so it would really sadden me if I'm unable to complete the recording before the PC goes off. Alright, so I'm going to drop this to about 5% and say okay and leave it to load for a bit. Just going to make a bit of adjustment to the shadows. This is still not nice, but depending on the building type I'm working on, this could be appreciated. So I'm just going to go switch off the shadows back. I did this, as I mentioned earlier, so that you can at least know that it's there and it works, but I don't like using it. So after setting all these things, there's more you might want to set. You are free to play around with these settings. Okay, I was going to talk about the last one earlier, which is when I said there are some days when I feel like no matter the surface, you can tell that this is supposed to be a wall, this is supposed to be concrete and so on. I just want everything to be uniform. Then I'm going to use uniform cut pen. Uniform cut fill, which in this case would be a uniform surface, and I choose a surface of any type, anything I want. So I'm going to use white, and I guess afterwards I'll try black, so we can just tell the difference. And what happens is all these places where we have these hatches are going to turn to white. You can see that. Not very fun to look at, so let's go with black, or better still this navy blue. Okay, these are from colors. I can go with surface color fill. Let's stick to this black. There was something else I wanted to try, but I just realized it might not be the same across every user. Okay, so now we can see everything appearing that black, anthracite to be precise. The roof is appearing so thin because I expect to represent only the roofing sheets, and if anybody is wondering, yeah, it's just the resolution of the screen. That's why we can't see some of this after zooming out. So I'm going to reverse that. I said some days, today is not one of those days, so I'm going to leave this uniform. The cut fill should be the surface, the cut fill non-shaded there, that was default, and I'm going to now, okay, doing this will just revert it to what we had earlier, so there's no point going to close and reopen again. The uniform cut pen, when I activate this, it says that for every part of this section that Archicad cuts through, we want their pen to be the same. And let me exemplify and explain that very quickly. Now, observe from what we have right now. We have this brownish, beige-ish color here. We have another fill here. And let me put on the line weight just in case. Okay, then we have this greenish one over here. We have this blue, purple-ish, whatever we would call that, over here. And what that setting I was showing just a minute ago does is makes all of them to be one uniform color that I choose. So I can select this and put it to black, and I end up with something like this. And majority of the time, something like this is what I choose to work with. Okay, so this is the first step, setting all of that. The second step in detailing your roof and foundation in the sections as requested would be for you to actually start hiding the parts of the section you do not want to see. So, now, why we want to hide certain items? It's because we are not being paid enough to do everything such that they are going to be modeled and displayed properly. It's possible, and I'm not going to do a video on how that is done because one, it's going to take a very long time, and I've done a lot of work, I've been paid but I've not seen anyone whose pay has been sort of like commensurate to that stress. So I typically don't do it. I just hide the items and still get a good display. So yeah, works well for me. Alright, so I'm going to change the fill from a cut fill to a drafting fill. I selected the fill to some. Please just follow the cursor in everything I'm doing, by the way, in case you are not like fully coping with this. For anyone who's doing this for the first time, please keep in mind you might need to watch this tutorial 4 or 5 times and practice alongside to get used to some of these things. There's a lot of concepts I'm trying to crunch into this specific video, so bear with me. I could break it down into series, or in the future decide to do shorter parts that describe individual one of these things I've been trying to explain earlier. Alright, so I'm going to switch off the line weights again, by the way, and I set this to drafting fill. I'm now going to use the background fill, and I'm going to ensure that the background is this, and then I'm going to start drawing. What I want to do now is all of these projected lines from the concrete fascia, I do not want to see them anymore. So I'm going to draw the fill to hide all of them, including this guy we have here. Now, in case you don't fully understand why the section is displaying like this, having this guy looking like wings and this other guy here, let me also share another tip that could help us. It's the what's it called, 3D cutaway. This guy we have over here, you can press Ctrl Y to activate it, by the way, like Ctrl Y. I think that should be showing around here on your screen. Alright, so I'm going to activate this, then not right click, just click on this drop down arrow we have here and click create custom cutting plane. When I do this, I start the plane over here, and we can tell even before I drop the cursor, and by the way, observe I'm drawing it on top of the section line, that this portion is bright, this portion is dark. Now this portion by the left, I'm not moving the cursor right now, what we have by the left is dim, what we have by the right is clear. And what that implies is that when I'm going to utilize this on the 3D, the dim portion is going to be invisible. We're not going to see that portion at all. Then the clear portion is going to be visible. So after doing this, we end up with something like this, and if you don't want to see this while you're working, if it's an inconvenience for you, you can always click this to switch it off. You didn't delete it, it's still there. Anytime you understand, like it's still there, but it's just out of the way. So when you open the 3D window, you could zoom out on whatever you're working on, and once you click on this, Archicad is going to slice through the building. Alright, so this is what we were seeing earlier. So for those who might have been wondering what these dudes are, I think your questions are being answered right now. They are parts of this concrete fascia for this elevated portion of the roof that we have over here. Alright, so that is on one side. Whoever is wondering on this one as well, it is still something similar. When I switch this off and we get the full view, you can tell that there is a concrete fascia that goes from here into the roof, and that is what we are seeing. So we don't really want all of that to be in our section. No, what we just want are the portions of the section that appear exactly on this plane. So that's what we'll be focusing on. Let me get back here. Alright, so let's get back to hiding what I said we're going to hide earlier. I'm just going to use the freeform or the polygonal fill. I'm going to start down here and run all the way, so to here, to here, to here, here, to this point, to this point, to here. By the way, if I make any errors during this process, I don't really mind so much, not because of I don't care about errors, but because I could always correct them. To here, run this across to here, here, and I believe we're coming to an end. And there we have it. So see what we have now. So all those items are still there. I just have this really big fill covering them. So I was very skeptical about what I was doing here. Now I am sure that I was getting it wrong. So I'm supposed to like adjust this and end up with something like this. Alright. What do I do next? Next thing I'm going to do is bring lines, because I want to draw different portions of the roofing members. So the way I had done this concrete fascia already, the intention is so that a tie beam is going to rest on this surface. It's going to start somewhere here, stretch across and terminate here. So I'm going to draw that out. I'm going to start here with a line. I am going to make it to appear black and draw to this point. Select the same line, duplicate it by whatever thickness I want for the tie beam, in this case 100 mm, and then we have a tie beam. Next, we can see that there is a peak in the roof here, so we anticipate there's supposed to be a king post coming from around the center here. So starting from here, I'm going to draw the line all the way down here to just show the origin of the king post. Next, I'm going to draw similar posts in similar positions. We have one here, we're going to have another one here, and last but not least for this section I think would have one here. Alright, so I'm going to try to use these as centers. For the posts I want to do, I'm going to be using 80 millimeters as their thickness, so I'm going to go 40 in this direction, then I'm duplicating again 80 in this direction, so that it's as though the first line I drew is going to appear at the center. Alright, so so this one I'm going to push it 80 all at once. I didn't duplicate. Alright, so this as well, I didn't get that. This 80. Alright, now there's still a number of things I'm overlooking, like there's supposed to be rafters going from here all across. So let me introduce that. Now in case I have a very complicated roof, I might not want to manually use lines to draw the rafters like this, but in this particular case I can just do this, take it to here, to here, to here, here, to here, and finally here. Alright, so I have this selected. Now I'm going to offset in all directions using these offset all edges here, and I'm then going to push it by whatever thickness I want for the rafter, which in this case is going to be the same 100 millimeters as we had for the tie beam earlier. So now I'm going to just trim off these surfaces. I'm going to trim here off, here, 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 here. Alright, after doing this, what's left is to introduce our straw and the others. Excuse me briefly. Okay, I said next we are going to have to put in the struts. Over here we are going to have our ceiling noggins. Below here is going to be everything about the foundation, but for the meantime, and if it's not ceiling, we'll still have other noggins for POP or whatever suspended finish we have here, unless of course you are designing a house where people just sit on these sofas and look up into the roof. Okay, so yes, the struts. I'm going to distribute. Why is it not selecting? Alright, Control G. I group these first, then I'm going to use Control U to spread these. Okay, and I want them to be at a spacing of 1.2 meters from each other. Alright, so after doing this, I just start taking the cursor in this direction and you can see them coming afterwards. So end it here. Then I'm going to take away this entire portion above the roof. We don't need that, so I'm going to use this split tool here, zoom in, click on this face and like bye bye. Please, you might need to watch this a few times in case you don't understand it. I've observed that some people don't really get what I do here. Step 1, I have everything I want to split selected. Step 2, I click on the split tool. Step 3, I click on the line. There's an instruction here that says click an arc or edge or draw a line to split elements along with. I already have a line here, an edge already, so I can click on it. And now there's another instruction after I click on it that says click on either side of the split line to keep the elements there. So I click on this side, so I keep the elements here, and then I press backspace to let them go, delete them essentially. Alright, that said, I'm going to do something similar in this other direction. So Ctrl G to group them, Ctrl U to multiply, then start here, run up to this point, and then like, hey everyone, you're gone. Alright, so next I'm going to click this specific dude we have right here and extend it to get all the way up here. Then I'm also going to like extend it to begin over here. Alright, so now we have this, but this is not enough. For anybody who is not in Nigeria, and I didn't even take notes to say this earlier, who's looking at this roof and is wondering why the hell are your roofs so high? Because I am in Nigeria. I am in eastern Nigeria, where the height of your roof is somewhat attached to how much prestige you have as a person. I'm saying this as a joke, but yes, different parts of the world have different construction practices, and what I'm doing shouldn't be seen as weird if it's not common wherever you are. Alright, so I'm going to group this once again and just manually take this by 1002. We can see that the spacing is not even. Well, that's because it's not supposed to be. Not like it's not meant to be, but the number of times you come up and see perfectly even spaces in construction is mere 0. Alright, so after having these two, I'm just going to centralize this. I place it in. One's wondering, how does he know that's the center? Honestly, I don't. So you're just going to leave it like that. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deactivate this setting here, this particular one here that says suspense group. Deactivate it because these two are in a group, so if I select them, they come together. If I select this as well, you can see, and then this, and then I'm going to use this distribute option we have here and say distribute them in the x-axis, and you see that slight adjustment that is made. That adjustment was to place it in the center between this and this. Now I'm going to reactivate this. Please try to keep this on majority of the time while you're working. Okay, so I'm zooming in. I'm going to trim off these. I was seeing some excesses there. Alright, so next I'm going to introduce the diagonals in the strut. So I'm going to click on this and this. Then I'm going to use Ctrl Shift E, or you could press Ctrl E Control, like Ctrl E Control. That's exactly what I had done earlier. And then pick up here as a starting point. Pick the innermost one here, not the outer one, inside here as your ending point, and then extend them to these. So now it gives us the illusion of this is going behind this. Alright, so extend this to this point, then repeat something similar over here, and then we have something like this. So I'm going to do this a few times. Here to here, here. Now I didn't even need to see the other portion. As long as the line I'm trying to do this on is visible, it's good enough for me. And I try when I'm doing these recordings to not just get carried away into assuming people fully understand everything I'm doing. If there's any part of this you do not understand, feel free to ask questions. If you are not on the group, join the group and you can get me much faster there. At least I typically reply within a few hours, and that's on a very busy day. On a day when I'm not so occupied, I reply within minutes. And as I said earlier, I am not the only one who replies to these. The idea behind creating that community for me was, if someone needs help with something, rather than just shuttling through YouTube hoping that someone has made a tutorial on that, you could ask questions directly. And joining the group also implies that if there's stuff you know as well and someone asks, feel free to just provide an answer. We're all here to help each other. There's no hard feelings. If you're not subscribed to this channel, I don't know what's holding you back. Please do. The Lord bless you and keep you. I have a lot of stories to tell. Okay, alright, here, and then extend these to here. If you find this tiring to watch, this repetitive process I'm doing right now, feel very free to just fast forward the video. I guess I should be done in like the next 60 seconds, if not less. Some could actually time me. Okay. That was wrong. I take it I'm not going to meet up with 60 seconds. Okay, no, this is not going to incline. We have our last two inclines here. And I think I'll just centralize this one as well as I did before. Yeah. Let me rush and trim these off, this and this out. Please take note that if you are not very experienced with Archicad yet, zoom in so you see these edges clearly, otherwise you might just come in later and see what you don't intend to see. Next, we are going to show what would be some what are they called again? Okay, some struts, but from a different angle. Over here, I thought I duplicated that. Okay, so I'm just going to select both of these, group them, then multiply them, and the spacing this time is going to be 750 mm. Alright, and there we go. So a large part of the roof has been done. One might be wondering, architects, you overlooked the pole lines. Not really, I didn't. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I hid a layer. I named the layer CI roof. Pole lines have already been automatically generated in that roof. So when I make it to be visible once again, they are going to like show up all over the place. All right, if you are not using CAD image, feel free to join the group so we can direct you on how you get CAD image and start utilizing it in your work. All right, so let's go for the noggins. The noggins I'm going to be using are going to be like 2x2 as we call them here in Nigeria. So these are poly lines. I suggest when doing these things, I'm just noticing that I'm using poly lines. Use the line tool, not use the poly line tool, please. For anyone who's wondering why, the best answer I could say right now is, in my experience, the line tool is less annoying when you need to make certain changes. Alright, what did I just do? Okay, group all of these and then multiply them at a spacing of 3 feet 900 millimeters from each other, and yeah, we have the roofing part done. I hope my battery is going to be enough to get the foundation part done as well. Okay, so for the foundation, you could model it or you could quickly just come represent them with fields, and that's one of the options I take a lot of the time, because modeling it also has some of its own perks that are not very pleasant. Alright, so for the foundation, I'm going to use a fill. Okay, let me just draw a random fill first. I'm going to give it the thickness of this wall, which is going to be 225 millimeters, and then the height is going to be like 1.75 meters. Okay, then it's going to have a footing. This foundation type is going to be the strip and pad. If you are using a different foundation type, then work with something that suits your needs as opposed to what I'm doing right now. Alright, so the width of this is going to be 675 millimeters and the height is going to be 150 millimeters, and I'm going to change the edge lines to be something much thicker. I'm going to use something like this, and then now I'm going to drag this from this point to this point, and then drag this from here. I pick it at the center and then I drop it at the center of this guy. Then when we're doing construction here in Nigeria, we still use the same kind of block work we have up here, down here. So I need these two to look alike, to look similar. In order for me to do that, I'm going to change the type from this to this 50% we have here. I need to know exactly what this is. So the structure is the generic structural. So what settings give birth to this? I'm going to go into building materials, specifically for this generic structural structure here. It says 50% of this, then there is something else. I think it's from the setting I did earlier where I changed the uncut fields. Alright, so for that I'm going to change this to 50%. I'm going to go with 50% of this. I think that comes really close. This might be precise. Yeah, this is exactly what I need. Then the footing we have down here, I'm going to change it to reinforced concrete, to search for reinforced concrete. By the way, this is Archicad version 26. Searching through the fields is not yet available. If you are using version 27 or 28, that has been included, but bear with me if this doesn't exactly align to what we have at the moment. Alright, so put on the line weight and observe that this is slightly thicker than what we have above. That's intentional, by the way. Alright, so I'm going to select these two, group them, then I'm going to duplicate them. I press Ctrl D, Ctrl Alternate right now. Why I did that is so that I can drag this as many and create many copies rather than just one. So I'm going to drag one from here, drop it here, drag again and drop it here. Turns out from where we have this section line position, we don't need so many of that. I think if I was to build this house myself, I would actually introduce one over here just so that the load is a bit better distributed. I don't like the fact that we have this much span. Alright, other things we have down in the foundation. Below this oversized concrete, we are going to have hard core. There's of course going to be a membrane, a damp-proof membrane in between them, but it's so thin that it doesn't really show up in sections. Typically it's about like 2 mm. That's for the very high quality ones, by the way. And underneath the hard core comes the earth. So I'm going to come into the fill tool, and for the hard core I'm going to search for filled stone. I typically use 01 or 02. So I'm going to start over here and terminate it somewhere here. To be sure of the height I want, I press D and then switch this to 300, and then this is kind of what I want. So I'm going to do this a few times. By the way, I'm going to make their edge colors to be the same so they don't clash with each other. So now I just pick the properties of this one, mark this area so that it gives me a guideline from there. I pressed Q while I was keeping the cursor here to do that, by the way. Then I do this, repeat the same thing, and get the last portion of it. Alright, after the hard core, the earth filling. So for the earth filling, I typically switch off the outlines and just use the earth fill. If you want to create a custom fill, request for that. There you can do a tutorial on how you can create a fill in case Archicad doesn't have what it is you are trying to do. So after I just fill up everywhere with this, I'm going to use this to say send backwards, and what that does is it tells Archicad there were some items here and this guy came to cover them. Move this beyond them, like, you understand? And yes, there we have it. There's a lot more that hasn't been done. For example, there's supposed to be drop beams from the slab over here. We're supposed to have lintels somewhere around this height, somewhere here. Looking at my battery right now, I doubt it would be wise of me to actually continue. So hopefully there might be a part 2 to this video, or let me just see how much more I could do. Here to here. I'm going to change this to the structural concrete. I'm going to switch the outline back on. Then I'm going to lift it to the height where I want it, which in this case is going to be 2.1 meters. Then I'm going to make multiple copies. I'm going to drop one over here. There's none at this point, so there's still supposed to be like one more over here. This is a very detailed object, so it has a lot of I know I'll still miss this. It has a lot of points close to it, so I think I can just take this and move it here. Alright, so I'm going to copy the properties of this, by the way. So go from here to here, because then we have a beam over there. Then the drop beam that comes from the slab is going to be done here. By the way, if you're not watching the dimensions, please do. I'm doing all of these with dimensions and I'm seeing them show up. Alright, so I'm going to pick this and this, and you know, just create duplicates of them on the next floor. Then go from this to this, show this beam as well, and yes, I think we have all our beams done. So there are cases where you have a wall plate here. I will not be doing that in this particular building. It's personal preference, at least about judging by how I would go about building this. If I was to do this on site, I will not be doing that. Okay, so there will be a part 2 to this. My battery is near dead. The part 2 should include introduction of grid lines, level markers, dimensions, labels, and hopefully a lot more. But I believe, to the person that asked this question, Mr. Goodess, this should have covered a lot of what you were trying to learn. Take your time to go through it, and I sought permission before recording. Forgive me for the background noise. Okay, I hope to see you in another one. Goodbye for now. 50 minutes. Wow.